what's up? It's Debbie, and I am back with more True Crimes of Criminal Minds, but not really this week, because this week I am doing a Christmas episode. If you've never been to my channel before, welcome. What I do is I look at an episode of Criminal Minds, and then I talk about a crime that was mentioned on the show, is similar to the case on the show, or sometimes a case that the show is actually based on. And to my returning viewers, you know I love you guys so much, and I'm so glad that you come back to watch me every week. This week, I am not going to be talking at all about a Criminal Minds episode, because I was watching a show on Investigation Discovery called Homicide for the Holidays. And I found this case, and then I researched it. I found some other YouTubers that have done episodes on it and a Wikipedia page, and there's all kinds of stuff out there about this case if you want to learn more about it. But I'm going to tell you about the Covina Christmas Massacre. And if there's any kids in earshot, I would recommend removing them, because this is about Santa and it's not kid friendly. So let's go ahead and get into it.
What's your address? Ma'am, I understand. I need to know your address.
When he shot, I heard the shots, and they were like poppers, and I wasn't sure what it was, so everyone started panicking and running, so we all dove under the dining room. Some of us dove, some of us left. My daughter has been shot. She was shot in the face on the side, and she's bleeding.
I know. I let the officers know. The officers are making sure it's safe for the paramedics.
I need a bandage, please. Please come immediately. I don't know who else is alive.
I know, ma'am. Just stay on the phone with me, okay?
My whole family, there's 30 people, 25 people.
I know.
On Christmas Eve, 2008, the Ortega family were having their annual Christmas Eve party. The whole family attended. The patriarch of the family was Jose or Joseph. I saw both names. And their last name is Ortega, so maybe his name was Jose and then he Americanized it to Joseph. I'm not sure. But he was affectionately called Papa Joe. His wife, Alice, was there, as well as their 5 children, James, Charles, Letitia, Alicia, and Sylvia, along with their spouses and children. So we're talking 25 to 30 people, a lot of people at this party, and they were all family. I cannot imagine having a family that large, but... So most of them were in the living room playing poker. That was one of the family's Christmas Eve traditions that they did at this party every year, was to get together and play poker. Most of the kids were playing in the backyard, but there were some still in the house. A little before midnight, around 11:30, 8-year-old Martina saw someone outside, and someone that she thought that she recognized. He was wearing a red suit and had a big wrap package Christmas present with him. And she said, "Santa's here," and she ran to the door, and she opened the door for Santa, and when she opened the door, Santa shot her in the face. He then proceeded to shoot as many people as possible. After he was sure that no one else was alive, so he cleared the whole house, then he unwrapped the present, and that present was a homemade flamethrower. The whole house ignited, and the flames were 50 feet high. It took 80 firefighters several hours to put out the blaze. Letitia, Martina's mother, she was able to scoop her up and climb the fence. I don't know how she climbed a fence holding an 8-year-old kid, but she climbed the fence in the backyard, went to the neighbor's house, and then called 911 from the neighbor's house. A lot of the people were able to escape out the back of the house. So there were, like I said, 25 to 30 people. 9 were killed and 3 were injured. And the survivors were more concerned about fleeing the house than figuring out who was doing this, obviously. So nobody had any idea. It was just some guy in a Santa suit. Neighbors started calling 911 when they heard the shots and saw the fire. And some neighbors noticed there was a suspicious car with its lights off driving away from the house. Now, that same night, 40 miles away in Silmar, California, Bruce Pardo was found shot dead with a 9mm handgun, the same kind of handgun used at the Ortegas house. There was one gun in his lap and another on the floor. There was a single bullet hole in his head. The house was not set on fire, but the police were convinced that there was some kind of connection. This wasn't even Bruce's house. It was his brother's house. Bruce Pardo was 45 years old. He was a software engineer for the Jet Propulsion Lab. And from what I understand, the Jet Propulsion Lab used to do more like missile type studies, and now it's more like of a NASA space type of place. I'm not 100% sure what it is. Anyway, he was a software engineer for them. He had had a string of bad relationships, and he was even engaged once and left his bride at the altar. How rude. I cannot imagine anybody doing that. In 2001, he met a woman named Elena, and they had a relationship but never married. And they didn't even live together, but they had a son. His name was Matthew. One day, Elena needed to do some errands, so she called Bruce and asked him to come over to watch Matthew. I think it's so strange that they didn't live together. Anyway, when Elena got home, she saw Bruce holding their limp son in his arms. He had fallen into the swimming pool, and Bruce had not noticed it until it was too late. He was still alive, but he received extensive brain damage from lack of oxygen, and this made him a paraplegic, and he would never walk again. I'm not sure Matthew's age at the time of the accident, but he was a small child. I'm thinking around 3 or 4. Bruce did not want anything to do with a handicapped son, so he left Elena and left her to take care of Matthew on her own. She sued him and won, but he never did pay any support for his son. He did, however, claim Matthew on his tax form as a dependent, even though he never was a dependent. He just did it so that he could get more money back. 2 years later, he met Sylvia Ortiz. They fell in love and got married in 2006. She had 3 children from 2 previous relationships. Bruce didn't tell her about Elena and Matthew at all, which, I mean, like, that's not appropriate first date conversation, but it is stuff you talk about when you're dating. Like, my husband has 2 kids. I didn't miraculously find out about them after we got married, if you know what I mean. Like, you learn that stuff about your significant other, whether or not they have kids, or if they've been married before, stuff like that, you know. So Bruce broke his knee. I don't know how you break your knee. I've fallen hard on my knees. Kneecaps are hard. I don't know how you break one. Anyway, he broke his knee, and he was allowed to work from home. Because remember, he's a software engineer, so he can work from home without any problems. So he got very depressed. He quit bathing. He wouldn't change his clothes. He ate very little, if at all. And according to Sylvia, he started acting differently. Like, he was not the man that she married anymore. He was totally different. And then, for whatever reason, she was looking at their tax forms and saw that Matthew was listed as a dependent. And when she found out about that, she asked him, he told her, and it was a last straw. Like, she had had enough of his crap. And she filed for divorce in 2008. Sylvia's maiden name was Ortega. She was Bruce's ex-wife. The police had found their connection between the shootings. Bruce was ordered to pay Sylvia $1,785 a month in spousal support. That was in 2008. That's more than I get for disability. To me, that's a lot of money. So, and the man had money. He was just a POS. So he was ordered to pay $1,785 a month in spousal support and a lump sum of $10,000. She got to keep her wedding rings, although why you would want your wedding rings from someone that you divorced, I don't get, unless she planned on selling them to get the money. I mean, she did have 3 kids to support. And so she got to keep her wedding rings and the family dog. And Bruce was really overly concerned about having money. And so he didn't want to pay. But this man obviously had money. And you will see when we get to his plan, all the money he had to spend to make this plan work. So because he was working from home, he could now bill for hours that he didn't work. So he was actually telling the Jet Propulsion Lab that he was working more than he actually was. And they found out, and he was fired in July of that year, in 2008. And the monthly spousal support was suspended due to financial hardship. So Bruce came up with a plan. He started buying handguns. Apparently in California, you have to wait 30 days before you buy a second gun. Why do you need multiple guns? But you still have to wait a month, 30 days in between each gun purchase. So he bought his first gun on June 11th, 2008. And so that was before he got fired. That was in June. And he bought it from a gun store in Burbank. And then he bought another gun from the same store on August 8th. Then in September, and then in October, he bought 2 more. So now he has 4 guns. In October, he went to Iowa to visit his friend Steve. He came home and then bought another gun in November. Bruce blamed all of his problems on Sylvia. Bruce did not like his dirty laundry exposed publicly, and he was really embarrassed. And he said that his firing was discussed publicly, which should not have been done. But anyway, publicly, people knew he got fired. And all of the bad stuff about the marriage and his son and ex-girlfriend, that all came out in open court. And Bruce just could not stand people talking about his business. And this Santa had a list, but it wasn't a naughty or nice list. It was just a naughty list. His wife's family, as well as her attorney, and also his own mother were on his hit list. His mother had sided with his ex-wife during the divorce, and she even sat on her side of the courtroom during the divorce hearing. She was also invited to the Ortegas Christmas Eve party, but she was sick and couldn't attend. So if she had been there, Bruce would have shot his own mother as well. And he had an elaborate getaway plan. He bought a ticket to Iowa for Christmas Day to make it look like he had gone to visit his friend again. And I think that may have been why he went in October to visit his friend, thinking if I do that more than once, they won't think anything about it. They'll think that I'm out of town again to visit my friend. So I'm going to buy a ticket. And then when the police see my digital footprint and see that I bought a ticket, then they're not going to be able to find me. So he packed his car with supplies, ammo, weapons, maps of the Southwest in Mexico. And they think his end game was to go to Mexico to hide out. Which, I mean, how do you have this kind of plan? Like, seriously, how does that help you? That just makes your life worse. You've got to pay all this money to your ex. You have a disabled son that you've abandoned. You've lost your job because you were cheating the company out of money. You're basically just a POS, and you decide to kill everybody and burn their house down and expect to get away and just have a wonderful life. Like, how? I don't understand. Of course, I'm not a psychopath, so I don't understand, which is a good thing. So, anyway, why did he shoot himself? His plan did not go as he thought it would. He used racing fuel in his homemade flamethrower. Now, this confuses me because I'm a big race fan, or I used to be a big race fan. Growing up, every weekend my house was actually, it was separated by a field, but my house was next to a racetrack. And that's where we all hung out at on the weekend. And then if I got in trouble for something and I got grounded, I could open the window and hear them call the races. And so I would listen to the races on my window. And I didn't know this about racing fuel, and it's confusing because cars get hot, right? So racing fuel apparently is more unstable than regular gas. And they think his plan was to disperse the gas and light it, or the racing fuel, and light it with a flare. And because racing fuel is more unstable, it can ignite when it comes near a heat source, which confuses me because why don't the cars blow up? Because race cars get hot. But anyway, so the Ortegas had the fireplace going. So this was a suburb of LA. So we're talking Southern California. So they probably didn't need a fire. But, you know, it's Christmas and it's a mood thing, you know. And as a Floridian, I totally get it because my mom would light our fireplace when we had Christmas parties when I was a kid. And we'd have the AC on. So I get why they had the fireplace. Like, it's a Christmas thing, right? So the container with the racing fuel was too near the heat source and it exploded. And when it exploded, Bruce received third-degree burns. So he tried to continue with his plans. He rented several rental cars, which is another thing. It doesn't make sense because to get a rental car, you have to put your credit card information, your name, all that. So it's very easily traced back to you if the car doesn't get returned. And I think there was a total of 3 rental cars, I think, that he rented for this whole plan. So the rental car that matched the description that the witnesses gave. So the car that was at the scene was parked 1 block from his brother's house. And in the passenger front seat was his Santa suit. And the Santa suit was rigged so that if anyone picked up the suit, 200 rounds of ammo would ignite. And how the person that picked up the suit did not get burnt or hurt, I don't understand, because this car just became a burnt out shell. Like, just like metal frame. Nothing. Everything else was gone. And one of the other rental cars, he left near the home of his ex-wife's attorney. I guess the plan was to, after he did the thing at the Christmas party, to then go to the attorney's house and shoot him too. So when Bruce went to his brother's house, he laid down on the couch and he was burned so badly that parts of the Santa suit had actually been burnt into his skin. His autopsy report is online at murderpedia.com. So if you're interested, it's there. I read it and I was going to tell y'all about it, but it is pretty gruesome. So if you're interested, it's at murderpedia.com. So he must have been in so much pain that he just wanted to end it all. Like, burns are the worst pain ever. I mean, you can get a tiny little burn on one little spot and it will hurt so bad it will bring you to tears. I mean, burns are awful. Awful, awful, awful. Martina, the 8-year-old little girl, survived, and she organized a walkout at her high school one year. This was years later because she's in high school, but she organized a walkout for gun control awareness. So I think she's going to be okay. So that is it for the Covina Christmas Massacre. It's a very sad story. So this has been just a short little Christmas episode because I am exhausted. I would be so glad when Christmas is over. I'm so exhausted. And this is also my last video of the year. So I will see you next year, guys. Thank you for making this year so great. I have gone from like 20-something subs to over 150. And I'm just so thankful for you guys. I know I'm still just a little teeny tiny channel, but I do love my returning viewers. And remember, be kind to people, love your family, and Jesus loves you. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!